All right. Well, we are back with another episode of Johnny on the Track. And this week's guest is a co-founder of World Racing Media Group. If you all remember, the first episode of Johnny on the Track, we had a guest named William Richard, at NASCAR Opinion he goes by. He's another co-founder of World Racing Media. So we are going to be having the other co-founder of this media group that produces podcasts. It produces, like hot tweets and hot takes via Twitter, and also they write articles that are posted on Twitter. So they do it all. They do a lot, and we're very excited to have him on. He has delivered a lot of hot takes, which we're going to press him on because some of them, I'll be honest, are quite wild. But he has a ton of knowledge and insight on the sport. So we're happy to have him on, and we'll get you that interview soon. But before we do that, I just want to do a little recap of some of the tweets I went over, and that was at Homestead last weekend. So we saw the race. We saw William Byron come out to be the winner, which I told you all on Twitter. Make sure you're following at Jott Podcast, JOTT Podcast on Twitter, and you will see all my daily fantasy picks that I provide you with. I told you to pick William Byron. He came in first. I told you to pick Tyler Reddick. He came in second. Quinn Houff was another pick that he started last. He ended up finishing like 34th. So he gained like 4 spots and got points. And he's like the cheapest you could possibly get. So we had a great week on DraftKings, on FanDuel, whatever you're playing. As most of you know, I play DraftKings. So make sure you're following that, because the last 2 weeks we've hit on all the picks that we've tweeted out. So if you're following and you like playing daily fantasy and you like making quick money, make sure you're following. Keep the updates. I'm going to keep doing these updates each week to dissect kind of what I picked and how it went. And again, we hit the nail on the head with just about every pick. So we're happy with that. And make sure you're following again. For the third time, make sure you're following that Twitter. You'll see the picks I have for this Sunday. I have already tweeted out that it is going to be a little more challenging because the lineup this week is more like what I think it will be for the rest of the season, where most of the big name drivers are now up to that top 20, top 25, especially with Truex being in the top 10 now, Harvick. I think Kyle Busch is going to start in the top 10. So one name I'm currently looking at to start, definitely Ryan Blaney. I saw a projection that he's starting about 25th. So I'm going to be all over him. But we're going to do some more analysis. We're going to do some more research. We'll get you those picks via Twitter. And again, make sure you're following at Jott Podcast, at Jott Podcast on Twitter, and then Johnny on the Track Podcast on Instagram. And so with all that being said, we will now move to the interview with Armany DePaul. I'll fast forward that for you guys. And again, I'm really excited to have him on. This is going to be a good talk. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we now welcome our next guest to Johnny on the Track. We previewed him, but here he is, Armany DePaul. He is the co-founder of World Racing Media. He's a co-host of NASCAR by the Numbers, which Armany, can correct me if I'm wrong, Thursday nights that airs?
Thursday nights at 8 p.m.
Okay, so Thursday nights at 8 p.m. You want to follow him on Twitter. He is at Motor Minister, and which we just found out, he is an aspiring race car driver. So we'll have to get into that Armani, thanks for joining the show. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to ask you is this endeavor with World Racing Media. So tell me, what got you into NASCAR, how long you've been a fan for, and how that translated to taking on this media group where you guys do podcasts, you tweet about Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR. Tell me how that kind of all translated to this, World Racing Group.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a NASCAR fan for years, like decades. Like the first memory I ever had, it was 2004 Daytona 500. I don't know how I can remember since I was 3 years old, but my mom put on the Daytona 500 because she used to be a big NASCAR fan at the time. And I've just been hooked onto it ever since. I always tell people racing to me it's like a religion. It's like it always sticks. You can't really explain why you love it, but it's always there with you no matter what. It's like auto racing, just the number one thing that's always been with me. It's my heart, it's my soul, been my passion my entire life. I'd give up anything, to be part of the industry. And for World Racing Media, this was around the beginning of 2019.
Okay.
I was going through Twitter and I saw my co-host of not the Blue Yellow Line, NASCAR by the Numbers, NASCAR Opinion, aka William Richard. He was posting some stuff saying like he's thinking about creating like the next speed channel, but for YouTube.
Okay.
So I DM'd him and I told him, hey, I'm interested because I was thinking about doing a podcast of my own at the time because we have a podcast called the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I'm the one that originally started that. I just had to leave the show after like a couple months because of some time constraints. So that's where we really got the ball rolling. I got a couple of my friends on board who are also big racing fans on there. They handle most of the Below the Yellow Line podcast now. But that's pretty much where World Racing Media started. It was really Will's idea. And then me and him, we just started talking. We got it off the ground. And I say we're doing pretty good. We're about to hit 220 subscribers. NASCAR by the Number. We're on year 3 now. We got the Below the Yellow Line podcast, which actually yesterday we hit our 100th episode. It's
wow.
It's crazy to think where we've come in, 2.5 years. It really is just looking back and thinking on it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So that's kind of how I've found both of you guys. And I had followed Will on Twitter for, I don't know, over a year now. And he built this big following of loyal NASCAR fans. And he has a personality that, as well as you, but both of you guys have a personality that captures fans and captures racing fans and hardcore racing fans that aren't going to hold back at you guys on whatever you say. And so, that's how I discovered you guys and have been a fan ever since of the different podcasts you guys do. And I want to say that I feel like I had watched Below the Yellow Line, but so you're saying you were a part of that, but had to leave it to do By the Numbers. I feel like I had watched that, but anywho, so again, I've been a big fan of you guys, and I hope that all the listeners will follow World Racing Media. And so were you Hendrick? What was your association with Hendrick? Like you're at Twitter, was it like Hendrick Motor? Am I getting that right?
My Twitter is at Motor Minister.
So were you ever like lead dog at Hendrick?
Oh, no.
Tell me that.
So one thing I decided to do for this season of NASCAR by the Numbers is every episode, instead of just putting my normal Twitter handle, I just try to change it up, something, interesting. So, since I'll put because I'm Italian, so I'll be like, oh, the dawn of NASCAR. Or, Will always has this joke where, everyone and their mother, except for Chase Elliott's the lead dog at Hendrick. So I put that as my Twitter, as my name for that episode, lead dog at Hendrick.
Okay. All right. So now I get it. Because I had saw that and I was like, oh, is he a Hendrick fan? Is he, I don't know, but I had saw that. And so I had to ask you about that. But so I see you've got the Homestead Miami hat on. So I can't move forward without asking you about Miami. So let's go into that. So you obviously watched the whole race. We saw a bizarre first stage. And I mean, absolutely bizarre, because I did not think Chris Buescher would come out as the stage one winner. And then we saw Byron take, if I'm correct, both two. I know he won the race, but he took stage two as well, right?
Correct.
Okay. So we saw Byron take stage two and win the race. I want to get your thoughts first on that first stage. What was it about Chris Buescher that was able to propel him to like really a first stage domination?
The only thing I can think of is maybe Roush Fenway just for some reason, set the car up to run better in the daytime. Because as you saw, when the night started cooling down, the track started cooling down, they just fell off and they finished 19th. And you saw other drivers like Byron, like the McDowells and the Hamlins, they started, coming up through the field. That's the only thing I can think of, is because these other teams, they set up their cars for the nighttime. Actually, it reminds me, 2019, when Denny Hamlin was running fourth of the championship four for most of the race, and I was with Will, and Will was like, Hamlin's not looking too sporty. And I told him, watch out for the nighttime. That 11 car is going to come out. And if they didn't have that tape issue, without that tape, even with tape issue, he was the fastest car on the track when it came to the nighttime. He finished in the top 10, I believe, on the lead lap. So that's the only thing I could think of, is that these teams, they set up their cars to run better in the night conditions. And the 17 team, they just never really did that for some reason. And you could see it where they started in the daytime and where they finished at night.
That's an interesting point. I mean, I would say, yeah. I mean, it sounds interesting, and it sounds like yes, because you saw Buescher start off hot, and then the sun goes down, track starts to cool. And the interesting thing about Miami, and obviously a lot of those Florida tracks, is that the sun goes down in one particular spot, and you see guys start to lose it on maybe 3 and 4 and still have it on 1 and 2. So yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I also, at the same time though, I did see Ryan Newman still have a good run, have a good finish. So I don't know, but that's definitely an interesting point. So how about Tyler Reddick? Because Tyler Reddick's run to the end was honestly something I haven't seen in NASCAR in a while. A guy that obviously, yes, he did it too late. He came on way too late. But that run of running, high against the wall did not come down until he absolutely needed to. But he was so much faster than every other car on the track at those last 20 laps. Tell me about what you thought of Tyler Reddick, who I tweeted I said, if there's an underdog to win, I think it could be Tyler Reddick. Tell me about those last 25 laps.
We know Reddick is probably, besides Larson, he's the number one when it comes to Homestead.
Yes.
And I think Reddick had a little more of an advantage than Larson, because obviously he ran the race last year. He ran fourth last year, pretty much the entire race, had a shot to win. Just like you said, I don't think I've seen a car and a driver just run down, going from like 12, 13 seconds back with like 20 laps to go, to only losing by 3 seconds.
On those tires too. On old tires. I mean, I think now I don't want to, say this without having the facts, but around, I would say 20 laps to go, he was about 10 seconds back. With like 10 laps to go, he was like 8 seconds, 7 seconds back. He was making up like half a second each lap. I mean, it was bizarre to me.
That just shows you, like, that's one thing I loved about Homestead, not just because it's my home track. I only live an hour away from it, but just it really is a comer and goer track. And the drivers are, it's a driver's track. These drivers that we always say are the best in the sport, the Larsons, the Hamlets, the Reddicks, they always shine at Homestead Miami Speedway, because it really takes that skill. It's not just all aerodynamics, despite it being just a 1.5 mile track. You really test your skills as a driver, your tire management, how close can you run the wall,
Yes.
saving your fuel, because there was even a little bit of a fuel issue maybe with the 24 towards the end. So it really just shows you the capability of a driver when it comes to winning Homestead Miami Speedway. That's one reason I love about the track. And I mean, if Reddick had like 5 laps, he would have caught Byron.
Yes.
Passing him is another thing, but he would have caught that 24 car.
I think, yeah, I would say if there was about 5 to 12 laps, probably in the 8 range, he was coming. He was coming for Byron. He was the fastest car on the track by a long shot those last 15, 20 laps. And I think we would have gotten a good race. And I wish it's weird because those first two stages, it looked like he couldn't find that rhythm against the wall. But then by stage 3 on old tires, he found it. And I really wish he had found a little earlier because I think that would have made for a great finish. But so you mentioned Michael McDowell having success on this track. I just want to talk about and get your thoughts on how he's been able to pull off this massive run of 3 top 10 finishes. And the stat about him, which I find absolutely bizarre, is he's been in the Cup Series for almost 15 years, I believe 14 exactly full-time seasons. And he had never had back-to-back top 10s in his career. He now has had 3 to open this season. I just want to get your thoughts on this incredible run by Mikey McDowell.
It's surprising because obviously that 34 car, you don't expect them to win, let alone finish inside the top 10. But what has really the talk always been throughout Michael McDowell's career? He's good at restrictor plates. He's good at road courts. As I mentioned in 2016, when Jimmy Johnson won his 7th championship, McDowell finished 10th in a Levine family racing car, a second Levine family racing car, the 59, when they were still, RCR affiliated and they weren't all that great. So when you really start digging into it with these tracks, you can't necessarily be that surprised because these are tracks that, suit McDowell's style. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Daytona 500, anyone can really win. The road course, everyone's like, oh, McDowell's a great road racer, so that's not too surprising. And Homestead was a little bit surprising because obviously, 1.5 miler. But back to what I'm talking about with the driver's skill. McDowell, he does have talent.
He does.
I got a little pissed at McDowell because I bet money on Joey Logano to win the 2019 Daytona 500. And let's just say McDowell decided to push Kyle Busch. It cost both of them to win, but that's long in the past. But like I said, so I wasn't really 100% surprised to see McDowell go on this run. I was expecting to run like 6, compete for a top 5, but I was expecting maybe 7th to 10th to 12th. But I'm not 100% surprised. The real test, I think, is going to be when it comes to a track like Las Vegas when we go to next week, where it really is more the machine than the driver, unfortunately.
So do you think we've seen Preece have a good start? We've seen McDowell have a good start. Obviously, I love Austin Dillon. But, there is something to be said in an RCR car, maybe that he's not a top 10 guy, but he has started as a top 10 guy. Do you think there's something to be said this season about the parity of it all? You've had 3 winners that you did not expect. And obviously, look, Christopher Bell, William and I talked about that. He can be a force in this league for a long time. I agree with William Byron, the same thing. He can be a force, but we didn't expect it. So are you surprised with the parity so far?
Just thinking about it now, I'm not 100% surprised. Here's the thing. Going a little bit off topic with NASCAR, one thing that I'm going to talk a little bit about Formula One. One thing that we're talking about with Formula One is which teams are going to come out in 2021 versus 2022. Are the teams, like, for example, like the Mercedes or maybe even like the Ferraris or the Williams, are they going to slow down to focus solely on the 2022 regulations where it's going to be a massive overhaul? Or are some teams going to take advantage of that and just go all in for here so they can have like a really good year and then they'll approach 2022? We could be seeing that also with this year. Maybe we might see some teams just go all in on this final year of the Gen 6 car. And then some teams are going to start, dialing it back a little bit so they can focus more time, more preparation going into 2022 with the next gen car. And then just, prepare themselves for, however many years we have that car.
That's an interesting theory. So for those viewers that are not familiar with what Armani's talking about here, so NASCAR is taking away this current setup, this current car, if you will, and moving to a next-gen car. Armani, correct me if I'm wrong. In the spring, they'll be moving to that next-gen car. Is that correct?
The next-gen car will debut next year in the Daytona 500, 2022.
Okay. So 2022, they'll be using that next-gen car. So that's what Armani's talking about. I think that's an interesting point. Another thing I would add is one of my theories here is that the lack of practice and the lack of preparing has really taken a toll on some of these drivers. example, Kyle Busch. Kyle
Yeah.
Busch is a guy that needs to know and feel the car. And you've heard him each of these 3 races so far. First 2 stages, my car's like shit. My car is shit. And it's because he doesn't get to practice. So he doesn't know it. He's got a new crew chief with he's unfamiliar with. The crew chief's a little unfamiliar on how Kyle is used to driving these cars. So I think that might play a role. But at the same time, it's going on 2 years now where we've had this structure where you don't really get to practice a lot. You don't really know the car going in. You have to make the adjustments on the fly as you normally do, but it has to be quick because, again, you're not used to that. What do you think about that?
That is a good thing, or without the practice, without the qualifying. The thing is, like I said, at some point we've been doing this for almost 2 years now. You got to adapt. And going to Kyle Busch, it's not like 2020 is where this has started. At the end of 2019, you saw Kyle Busch was struggling.
He struggled at the end.
He was struggling. I mean, not many people had him going to the Final Four. When we were in Texas, a lot of people say Kyle Busch was going to miss the Final Four. Yes, he won the championship, but that was his only good race for the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know what's going on with Kyle Busch. I don't know if it's just a mental thing that's going on with him. I don't think he's lost it personally, but I don't know. But like you said, with the practice and the qualifying, that's more. I feel like we're starting to see which crew chiefs really are more valued in the Cup Series versus which ones aren't. So, for example, like the Rodney Childresses, or I am very high on Chris Gabehart with Denny Hamlin. He revived Hamlin's career. These crew chiefs that are very adaptable to new situations. And I mean, it's not like we're not going to have practice and qualifying throughout the entire season. I mean, we're going to have some, and especially in the road courses and stuff.
Yep.
So, and the practice, I mean, we've had this package for 3 years now. Obviously, setups change and this and that, but these drivers, they should, these drivers in these crew chiefs, they should at least have a general idea. At least I'm not a crew chief, so I don't know, but have a general idea. Okay, what my driver wants and exactly, what we need to akin to his liking.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And I don't know. I can't put my finger on why it's been so. I mean, obviously it's been competitive for the last couple of years. I mean, you saw Austin Dillon and Cole Custer win races last year, very unexpected. But again, there is something to be said by the first 3 races. You've had guys where everybody's scratching their head like, is this? We did not expect this. But you have a road course, you have the Daytona 500, and then you have a 1.5-mile track. So Las Vegas, moving forward, I think we're going to really see, okay, who's ready, who's looking at this season, and who's going to have a chance really to compete for a championship. And I would be surprised. I really think William Byron has a chance. I really do.
If he puts on a performance like he did this past Sunday, he's going to be a threat. He's going to be a dark horse.
Yeah, I mean, there's 7 or 8 1.5-mile tracks you're going to visit this year twice. So, right? I mean, I don't know. But I want to move forward. So I want to talk a little bit about your personal side. So tell me who you root for. Who are your guys right now in the series?
Well, right now I got 2 guys. So last year my guy was Jimmy Johnson. Way back when I started watching, it was Dale Jr., Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane. Obviously, they're all gone. So my current guys, unfortunately, are Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick. Larson, say what you want about the Fiat. Obviously, what he did last year. Obviously, it's just that's a whole discussion for another day. But just the raw talent that Larson possesses is just. It's unmatched. I mean, we've seen what he's done in dirt. We've seen what he could do with sports cars. There's been many rumors about him, potentially being the Indy 500 one day. And obviously what he's done with the Cup Series and obviously, helping bring Ganassi back to relevance. Mm-hmm. So just I respect Larson, his abilities so much that it's and plus Larson drives the 5 car. My favorite number is the number 5. So it's kind of a match made in heaven.
Okay.
And same thing with Tyler Reddick also. I just appreciate talent.
He is
motorsport.
He is as
talented
obviously as Larson, but Tyler Reddick is as talented as any single person in that series.
Exactly.
He really is. I mean, Sorry, but he dominated the Xfinity series. He dominated the
Oh
Xfinity
yeah.
series, and he can race dirt. I mean, he could do it all. So I agree. I'll let you go.
I just appreciate talent, and those two are probably top five in terms of talent in the Cup Series. It's why I also respect guys like Hamlin and Harvick and Chase, just drivers that have this. I always say like some of the best ways you could tell if a driver's talented or not is if you could take a driver and pluck him from his current era to another, and you could say he will still dominate that era. I
Yeah.
personally think drivers like Larson, drivers like Reddick, those are drivers that I'm talking about. Same way you could say the same thing about maybe Jimmy Johnson or Dale Sr. or
Mhm.
David Pearson.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at the raw talent, it's there with Larson, it's there with Reddick, it's there with Christopher Bell, it's there with Christopher Bell. And man, I like I said, if Austin Dillon can put it all together, man, I really I'm waiting. I'm waiting for that season where he breaks out and wins 4 or 5 races and can compete for a championship. Maybe, maybe it's not in this situation with RCR. I don't know, but I really hope he gets the chance and we see him excel because he's another guy with just loads of talent in a cup
Oh
car.
yeah.
And I don't know, man. I'm dying to see it happen.
Yeah, Austin Dillon, he's another one. I mean, 2016, he made the playoffs on points. He's beaten Newman to the playoffs on points. So Austin Dillon does have the talent. To me, Austin Dillon, I like to categorize drivers in certain levels.
Yeah,
Austin Dillon to me falls into the category of he's gonna get as much as the equipment's gonna give him. He's not gonna underperform his equipment, but he's not gonna exceed his equipment.
yeah,
And we saw that in 2016. RCR was okay, they were good enough to make the playoffs. Austin Dillon was good enough to make the playoffs. 2019, RCR was terrible. Austin Dillon was terrible. This year, I have big hopes for RCR this year. I said they were going to be really good. They're looking really good. And Austin Dillon, he's looked really good. Top 5 Daytona 500, running top 5, top 10 most of the time on the road course. Finished 12th, either 12th or 11th at Homestead. So that 3 team, RCR as a whole, is doing really good right now.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I mean, I've tweeted about it, but I do think if he gets the chance, he can have a breakout season, and I really hope he does. But I want to move again into something even more personal. So you said we were talking early, and you said you're an aspiring race car driver. Talk to me about that. Are you
Uh,
racing?
Lord knows I wish. So my entire life, I've pretty much just been wanting to do nothing but be a race car driver. It's just I don't know what it's like, just that bug in me, that racing bug, that passion is just
Yeah.
this is what I want to do in my life. Everything else, like just it means nothing to me. It honestly means nothing to me. Like even my current college major, it's like Roger Penske or Chip Ganassi were to call me tonight and say, "Hey, we could give you a seat right now in any kind of racing, but you got to quit your job. You got to move to North Carolina. You got to do this." I'm packing my bags and I'm leaving because
Yeah.
that's what I want to do. That's what I wanted to do ever since I started watching the sport. And it's funny. My favorite movie is, you might laugh at me for this, is Speed Racer from 2008.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
one reason I love that movie is just, I don't know, I personally feel like I resonate with Speed just because I feel the love that he has for the sport of racing. And just when he says, like, when he's in his race car, just everything just makes sense. Like, I personally feel that, like, I haven't been in a race car, but like, because I can't afford it, like, I'm nowhere near in a financial situation where I can even compete, unfortunately. But I've been able to like go to like my local go indoor karting track a lot. And if this means anything, I've done 88 races at my local K1 speed and I've won 36 of them. So if that means anything,
Hey, it might.
um,
And look, I think that's an important lesson, and not lesson, but just important to know and have this passion towards something. And it's like myself, I have a passion to, talk about things I love. I love NASCAR, and I'm not afraid to show it. I'm from the Northeast where it's not very popular, and I'm not afraid to show, how much I love it. I love basketball. I love talking basketball. So I think that's important. And I do I actually so I'll give you a quick story on the Speed Racer movie. So I think it was like, I don't know, fourth, third grade, something. For my birthday, I took like 12, 15 of us. We got let out of school early, so that they made like the principal made an announcement over the whole school and was like, "Can these 15 names report to the office? You guys are leaving early." And so we went to see Speed Racer, and I've only seen it obviously that one time, but I vividly remember the scene where the elevator door is closing, and right he has his middle.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yes, yes. I
I
always thought
remember
so
that scene
funny.
too. I remember almost every scene to perfection. I remember where it's like Royalton was like, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," and
Yeah, I
then
mean,
Spritel just gives him the finger.
so obviously I saw it when I was super young, and I just remember my mom being like, "I thought this movie was like a PG movie," but there's some
It
there's
is
some
rated
good
PG,
stuff in
by the
it.
way. There's blood, there's cursing, there's middle finger. It's rated PG.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you love something as much as you love racing, and clearly we know that you know what the heck you're talking about. That's for sure. So I want to talk to you a little more, and I told you I was going to press you on this. I told you before we started. What is your deal with Trackhouse? I mean, you said book it. Trackhouse is making the playoffs now. Here's what I have to say. They have a lot of money behind them. They do. With
Oh yeah.
Pitbull, with the sponsorship that they already have, they put out I think two really cool looking cars.
Oh yeah.
So the money is there, but the Daniel Suarez effect, I don't know. I don't know if he can be competitive in this series. I just don't. If he's going to make the playoffs, to me, I think he has to win a race. I do not think he's going to make it on points. So, with that being said, I give him a puncher's chance at Dover, at Michigan, at Glen, and at Pocono. Michigan is a track when he won the Xfinity Series. He won, I believe, Pocono. He won Michigan, and he won Dover. And he's had good finishes at both Dover and Michigan and Glen plenty of times in the Cup Series. So why do you think that Trackhouse is going to make the playoffs?
It's more of a gut feeling. Just Justin Marks, very, very smart businessman, knows the ins and outs of auto racing. In a weird way, I trust Justin Marks more than I trust Denny Hamlin, just because we never really seen Hamlin, develop that business side in the racing world. But we've seen that with Justin Marks. And with Daniels, obviously said the fun, but with Suarez, I feel like people really underestimate the mental state when it comes to being a race car driver. And I believe that's another thing that Formula One touches on really well, when especially when it comes to inter-team rivalry, how a driver, if a driver feels like they're at home, or, are they just there as a seat warmer? It really does affect the driver mentally. Like, I mean, look at what happened with Alexander Albon this year, with Sebastian last year, with Sebastian Vettel Ferrari, or Albon at Red Bull. It's that mental state that if a driver isn't in a right mental spot because of his environment, he's not going to perform. And I think that's another thing people underestimate, that especially in NASCAR. So yeah, there's at the some points like, okay, you just gotta stop giving excuses, you just gotta go out and perform. But think about what Suarez has gone through. He was thrust into the Cup Series basically out of nowhere.
Yes, I agree
2018,
with that. I agree with that. He was not ready, I
and he
believe.
had a solid rookie season. He had 12 top 10s, finished top 20 in points, so not a bad rookie year. He had a sophomore slump in 2018, but the sophomore slump, I mean, Harvick had a sophomore slump. I believe he finished the same place in the points as Suarez did in his sophomore year. And then they kicked Suarez to the curb, because Truex was coming in. So you had to believe Suarez knew that had put a lot of pressure on him. And then in 2019, it's like Suarez thinks, okay, this is my shot. And then he gets kicked out of the 41. Just all these factors are, it's like we don't know what's going on. Suarez. That's why I feel very confident, because Suarez seems very confident in Trackhouse. Trackhouse seems very confident in Suarez. I believe Suarez has a multi-year deal with them, and they want to build around him. So that's why it's also a reason why I have a little bit of optimism for Eric Jones and Richard Petty Motorsports, just because the team wants to build around him. The driver feels appreciated more than they did in their previous teams. So that's why I think that they're going to succeed more. So that's why I think Suarez is going to do really good things with Trackhouse. And Trackhouse might have more, if not more money than RCR. So, I mean, they finished 15th in the race, which, I mean, 23-11, they finished 22nd. So I just had this gut feeling that Trackhouse is going to make the playoffs. I, th- I think Suarez is really going to want that first playoff run, even if he gets eliminated in the first round. So I think we could potentially have a Matt DiBenedetto series like last
Okay.
year.
So, so you're gonna get a kick out of this, but so I think some of the guarantees right now is Matt DiBenedetto and second place finishes. What was a guarantee in prior to this year because he's having a rough start, and another one was Daniel Suarez in top threes. He was going to get you. His best was going to be a top three, but he wasn't going to win. And so I'm hearing you out that he has never gotten in a rhythm, I guess, if that's what we want to say. So, he comes out and I agree with you, has a good rookie season at JGR, has a little bit of a slump, off he goes. Doesn't get that rhythm at Stuart Haas, off he goes. And then after that, I mean, he was at where was he?
Gaunt Brothers.
Where was?
Gaunt Brothers.
Gaunt Brothers. So an underfunded team where, look, but I feel like he has to win, wouldn't you say? To get in the playoffs, he's going to have to win.
He most likely will have to win, but again, because there's like 25, 26 cards you can argue have a realistic shot of making the playoffs.
Yes.
So it probably will have to win, but again, you mentioned the tracks he's good at, the Poconos, the Watkins Glens, the Michigans, the Dovers. He's also a very good super speedway racer. I mean,
Yeah.
He led laps last year in the July Daytona race in a Gaunt Brothers car. So we know that Suarez is really good at these plate tracks. I believe he was up front also in the Daytona, either in the Daytona 500 or in the duels, one of those two.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So Suarez, he has his opportunities. It's just, are they finally going to take advantage of it?
Well, I'm looking to see this because it's a hot take, and hey, I mean it's not out of the question because the funding is there, and I mean racing fans know that they've put out some really cool looking paint schemes with some big time sponsors. So I'm rooting for Suarez. I have nothing against Suarez, but I just think in his first season with this, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe next season when he gets his feet wet and now he's appreciated in the situation. He knows the car. He knows the people around him. I think that's when maybe we'll see it. But hey, I'll look if he's on the playoffs, you'll be back on this podcast.
Oh yeah.
We'll be talking.
And I'm gonna be doing a lot of talking if Suarez makes the playoffs. Hopefully it goes better than my Newman to the 48 prediction.
Well, that seemed to not go over well.
I had a legit reason for that, so.
Well, let's hear it out.
So my thing was, it was all dependent on Noah Gragson. So my thing was, Newman goes to the 48, signs a 1 to 2 year contract. Gragson gets another year in Xfinity, or they move him to the 37 car, assuming they were to get rid of Priest, and that gives Gragson more time to develop. So by the time Newman's ready to retire, Gragson hopefully will be groomed and ready to take over a Hendrick.
That's interesting. It's interesting. I love Ryan Newman, and obviously he's on decline. He's on his way out. I'm going to give you a quick follow up on Ryan Newman, and then I'll move into our game that we're going to play. Is Ryan Newman a Hall of Famer?
No.
I've asked a lot of people this.
No, he's not a Hall of Famer. If we start letting drivers like Newman in my opinion, then in my opinion, devalues the Hall of Fame. I think a Hall of Fame career should be either championship guarantees you win. No championship, you need at least 25 wins, in my opinion, to get in, or you need to have done something so substantial for the sport that your stats that most would consider good or, just okay to get you in. Newman, he's got 51 poles, so you can argue that, but I believe there's like 7 or 8 other drivers already ahead of him. 18 wins. His top 10 ratio was, about it's about pretty good, but I don't think Newman's a Hall of Famer personally. I think that we need to keep, because then you could argue Casey Kane's a Hall of Famer. You can argue Greg Biffle's a Hall of Famer, and I personally don't think none of them are Hall of Famers.
I agree, but I will say So we know Ryan Newman comes into the sport, and in his second, third year, he lights the league up. I mean, he had early on, he was really good.
Oh yeah.
And everybody was like, wow, this guy's gonna be really good. And then the last 5 years, he's really fallen down. And even after those first like 5 years, um, he falls on the decline. And then he has that one resurgence year where he finishes second in I believe what was the first year of the new formula, where
Yes, it was.
it's the final four. He gets there and he finishes second, and so he comes in second. So he has that to fall back on. I think, and he doesn't have much time left, but I think if he can get to 20 wins, he'll have a pretty decent case to make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he needs to crack the 20 mark. I don't know if he ever will, but he needs to crack
I
the 20 mark, in my opinion.
I don't think he will. He'd have to go to a new situation because clearly, I mean, in the six at Roush Fenway, it's been what 4 years now since we've seen him in victory lane. So
Yeah,
it's not going to happen there. But again, I'm a big Ryan Newman guy. I wish him the best. I mean, that horrific crash to even be back in the car and finish last season, and want to come back and do what he loves. Props to him. So we will move in to our favorite game, the most played game on Johnny the Track, and it is called Fastest Lap Trivia. And so how it works, if you're not familiar, Armani, is we will give you a question, and you're going to have to answer the question in the time that is the fastest lap at that week. That current week's track. So, for instance, this week we're at Las Vegas Motor Speed. Armani, the question is, in 2006, Las Vegas Motor Speedway changed the pavement on the track to increase the banking from 12 degrees to 20 degrees. In 2007, the first Cup Series race took place on the new look pavement. Which driver won that race? Time is on.
Oh, Johnson.
Johnson is correct. First guess too. That's impressive. So
I was like, because I remember the Cobalt car. I'm like, I remember seeing the Cobalt car in Victor. Was that the race where he passed Kenzo at the last lap? Or was that 2006?
I believe that was 2006 because he won back to back at Vegas, and I believe that was 2006. And I think he just kind of dominated towards the end. So very well done. I think so normally I give the guest as many chances to guess, but I think since you just guessed that on the first
like
try,
seconds.
the rules are going to change. So Armani's changing the rules. But
sorry for future guests out there.
Yes, he's apologizing in advance. What do you think of the game, though?
I like that. I like how it's specific to the current weekend, and I like how I like how, with the banking, the changing, instead of just like, which driver won, the 2009 Daytona 500,
Right.
I like the difference where you have to think. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guests I have on clearly know what they're talking about, which is awesome. I've had you, have William, have had we had Ryan Priest's crew chief on do that, and so it's interesting to hear you guys. I give this question and then 5, 6, got it that quickly. So it's impressive, and I'm glad you like it. I'll give you a little rundown of some of the other games we've done. So we did what was called Clogged or Clean, and so we had Randy the Plumber on. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but we had, and so we gave him a paint scheme, and we said, is this paint scheme clean or is it shit? Which would mean it's clogged. So he was doing that, and we just did. I don't know if you're familiar with Jeff Kerr. Have you heard of Jeff Kerr?
No.
So Jeff Kerr was a pit crew member at Dale Earnhardt Inc. for, I want to say, like 6 years. He was then at Hendrick. He was the pit trainer there, as well as the lead crew member for Hendrick for almost 10 years. And then he worked with JTG. So we had him on. Awesome. You should listen to that episode. It's a really cool episode to appreciate the pit side of it all. And so we had him on, and we basically we put up fictional characters. So for instance, Shrek, Forrest Gump, and we said, can this guy be in the pits and why? And it was really interesting to listen to him give, yes or no, but also the reasoning behind it all. So
I didn't figure what he said for Shrek.
what did he say for Shrek? I think he said yes to Shrek just because there's guys built like that in the pits. Strong guys, they'll find a role. They can carry that 90-pound gas can and fill it up.
That's true.
So definitely, yeah, you're going to have to listen to that because I think from like loyal fans like myself and you, it was really interesting to learn what he had to say about the whole pit side of it all. So with all that being said, Armani, I mean, I got nothing left to talk to you about. And this was a great episode. I'm really happy you came on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is the first time I've ever been invited onto, a podcast or, show or anything like that. So I really appreciate it.
That's you and William have said the same thing. And I'm like, you guys have big followings. Like, you guys know what you're talking about. I feel like small podcasts and guys like myself want to have guys like you on.
His following's a little bigger than mine, but
but it makes me look good when I have guys like you guys that know exactly, the ins and outs of the sport and have been around the sport for so long as diehard loyal fans. And you guys are easygoing, which is good. You have those. A lot of my friends and listeners aren't diehard fans, right? So, having guys like you and William who know what you're talking about, but also can put it in simple terms for people that don't and are just listening for a good time. I think it's important to have that all, all involved. So again, I thank you again for coming on, and do not worry, I will have you back on. And no matter what, I'm going to have you back on when the playoffs start. And it will be either because Trackhouse made the playoffs
or they didn't.
All right. Can I hold you to that?
Hey, man, you can have me on anytime.
All right. Sounds good, my man. Thank you so much. Again, this is Johnny on the Track, and we had Armani on tonight. Armani, take care, and I'll be seeing you again.
Hopefully it's on the right side of history.
Yes, absolutely. Take care, man.
All right, take it easy.